Dr. Catherine Martinez stared at the holographic casualty reports floating above her desk, each name pulsing with an angry red glow. 43 pilots lost in the last engagement alone. The Arxian AI ships had torn through Earth's best defenders like they were target practice dummies, their combat algorithms so advanced they made human reflexes look prehistoric. She took another sip of her cold coffee, her third cup since midnight. The lab's harsh lighting cast deep shadows under her eyes, reflecting off the numerous empty energy drink cans littering her workspace. The United Earth Defense Force's R&D facility had become her home since the first Arxian attack 3 weeks ago. Running Simulation Attempt 2847. The lab's AI announced in its maddeningly calm voice. On the massive display wall, another wave of Earth fighters engaged the Arxian vessels. The result was the same as the previous 2,846 attempts. Total annihilation of human forces in under 6 minutes. Damn it! Kate slammed her fist on the desk, sending her coffee cup tumbling. She barely noticed the brown liquid seeping into her research papers. We're missing something. Their ships think faster, react faster, calculate faster. They're just better at everything. She rubbed her temples, trying to focus through the caffeine jitters. The Arxians had perfected AI warfare over centuries. Humanity had barely scratched the surface of artificial intelligence, and now they were paying the price. Every engagement was like watching children play chess against grandmasters. The simulation continued to run in the background, the screams of dying pilots providing a grim soundtrack to her thoughts. Kate was about to order Simulation Attempt 2848 when something caught her eye. A glitch in the neural monitoring data from one of the human pilots. Computer, free simulation at time index 523. The holographic display froze, showing the final moments of Lieutenant Jessica Hayes. Her neural patterns showed unusual spikes just before her death, patterns that looked remarkably similar to. "Oh my God," Kate whispered. She frantically pulled up her old research from her doctorate days. Studies on human consciousness transfer that had been deemed too dangerous and ethically questionable to pursue. Computer, overlay Hayes' neural pattern with standard A decision matrices. The patterns danced before her eyes, telling a story she'd been too tired to see before. While the AI thought in straight lines, human consciousness worked in spirals and waves. The Arxians had perfected artificial thinking, but they'd gone down the wrong path entirely. "We don't need better AI," Kate muttered, her hands shaking as she began drafting new equations. "We need to stop trying to think like machines." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of calculations and illegal neural mapping protocols. When Admiral Chen arrived for his daily briefing, he found Kate standing in front of a wall of equations with a manic grin on her face. "Dr. Martinez, you missed this morning's strategy meeting." "Because I was busy saving humanity, sir." She turned to face him, her eyes bright with exhaustion and excitement. "We've been approaching this all wrong. The Arxians beat us because their ships think faster than our pilots. But what if our ships could think exactly like our pilots? What if we could transfer human consciousness directly into our vessels?" The Admiral's face darkened. "You're talking about neural mapping." That research was banned after the Singapore incident. The Singapore incident happened because they tried to map multiple consciousness patterns into a single host. I'm proposing a one-to-one transfer. One pilot, one ship. Perfect neural synchronization. "It's too dangerous," the Admiral said, but Kate could see the desperate hope in his eyes. Another holographic report flickered to life. 60 more pilots lost while they'd been talking. More dangerous than extinction. Kate pulled up her preliminary results. The Arxians think they're superior because they've perfected machine logic. But they've never faced ships that can feel, improvise, and fight with human intuition. They've never faced ships that think like us. The Admiral stared at the casualty reports for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "You have 1 week to prove this concept, Doctor. After that." He gestured at the growing list of the dead. There might not be any pilots left to save. Kate turned back to her equations, her tired mind already racing with possibilities. 1 week to digitize the human soul, she muttered. No pressure. Lieutenant Michael Ghost Riley stood before the neural command capsule, trying to ignore the forest of wires and electrodes dangling from its ceiling like mechanical Spanish moss. The integration chamber looked more like a coffin than a pilot's seat, its sleek white surface reflecting the harsh laboratory lights. Last chance to back out, Lieutenant, Dr. Martins said, checking his neural implant connections for the 3rd time. Her hands were steady, but dark circles under her eyes betrayed 5 sleepless nights of preparation. Riley managed a crooked smile. With all due respect, Doc, I've already died twice this week. He touched the fresh scar on his neck, where an Arctian laser had nearly decapitated him during his last conventional flight. 3rd time's the charm. The capsule's interior was surprisingly comfortable, lined with a gel-like substance that molded to his body. As the lid descended, Riley caught a glimpse of his new body through the observation window. A Raptor-class corvette, its hull still gleaming with factory-fresh paint. The ship had been stripped of traditional controls, replaced with neural interfaces that would theoretically allow his consciousness to flow through every system. Beginning neural sync in 3, 2, 1. The world exploded. Riley's consciousness shattered into 1,000,000 pieces, each fragment carrying a memory, a thought, a piece of who he was. He felt himself spreading, stretching, flowing through circuits and conduits. His heartbeat became the thrum of the fusion reactor. His nerves extended through kilometers of fiber optic cables. His skin was now titanium armor plating. Neural sync at 15%, 30%, 45%. He screamed, but no sound emerged from his human throat. Instead, every speaker in the ship blared with static. Warning lights flashed as his panic rippled through ship systems. Riley. Dr. Martinez's voice cut through the chaos. Focus on something familiar. Find an anchor. Through the haze of system inputs and data streams, Riley remembered his first flight. The freedom of soaring through clouds, the joy of breaking atmosphere, the dance of thrust and vector. The ship's systems began to align with these memories, transforming raw data into sensations he understood. Neural sync stabilizing. 60%, 75%, 90%. Suddenly, everything clicked. Riley wasn't just interfacing with the ship. He was the ship. He flexed his wings. Not wings, vector thrust arrays, but they felt like wings. He tasted space through radar returns and electromagnetic sensors. The stars sang to him in frequencies he never imagined existing. Neural sync complete. How do you feel, Lieutenant? Riley laughed, the sound resonating through his new body's internal communications. I feel huge. The test flight was scheduled for minimal maneuvering, just basic systems check. But as Riley/Slash ship approached the asteroid field serving as their test range, proximity alerts screamed. 3 Arctian scout ships dropped out of FTL, weapons hot. Riley returned to base immediately. Control ordered. You're not cleared for combat. But Riley was already moving. His consciousness flowed through the ship's systems like instinct. The scout ships fired, their targeting computers predicting his vector with mechanical precision. But Riley didn't think like a machine anymore. He rolled, letting his gravitational wake pull a small asteroid into the line of fire. As the Arctian shots pulverized the rock, he was already accelerating through the debris field, using the fragments as cover. His human mind processed the asteroid field not as mathematical vectors, but as a 3-dimensional dance floor. The Arctian ships followed their optimal attack patterns, firing with perfect efficiency, but they were fighting a human consciousness operating at ship scale. Riley didn't calculate trajectories. He felt them. He didn't process sensor data. He lived it. When the last scout ship exploded, Riley realized he'd been humming his favorite jazz tune through the ship's external speakers. The entire engagement had lasted less than 2 minutes. "Holy shit," Dr. Martins whispered over the comm. "Did anyone record that?" Riley turned his massive frame back toward base, marveling at how natural it felt. "Hey Doc," he transmitted, "I don't think I'd want my old body back." In the debris field behind him, a single piece of Arxian hull tumbled through space, its surface scored with a warning the aliens would soon learn to fear. Humanity had stopped trying to match their machines. They'd become something entirely new. After Riley's legendary first engagement, the Neural Command Program didn't just receive volunteers, it had to beat them away with a stick. The integration chamber that had once seemed like a coffin to many now had a 3-month waiting list, with pilots literally fighting for their spot in line. Jenny Cooper strode into the lab wearing her old NASCAR jacket, covered in sponsorship patches long since made meaningless by the Arxian invasion. "You're telling me I get to be the ship?" she asked, running her hand along the sleek hull of her assigned vessel. "Not just fly it, but be it." "That's right," Dr. Martinez confirmed, adjusting the neural calibrators. "Though I should warn you, everyone experiences the integration differently." Riley described it as, "Don't care," Cooper interrupted, already climbing into the capsule. "I spent my whole life trying to become one with the machine. Now I finally can." When Cooper emerged into consciousness as her ship, she didn't just adapt. She revolutionized space combat maneuvers. Her neural ship pulled turns that would have liquefied a human pilot, threading gaps in Arxian formations that their AI swore were mathematically impossible. During her first squadron engagement, she pulled a bootlegger reverse at 0.3 C, using her own plasma wake as a weapon. Marcus Wong took a different approach entirely. The former chess grandmaster spent his first hour as a ship completely motionless, spreading his consciousness through the sensor arrays, tasting tactical data like fine wine. When he finally moved, his ship didn't just fight. It conducted warfare like a symphony. Their thinking in single moves, Wong's transmitted voice was calm as he coordinated a defense of Europa Station. "But space is a 3-dimensional board, and I'm playing 10 moves ahead." His neural ship predicted Arxian attack patterns with uncanny accuracy, positioning himself and his squadron mates like pieces in a deadly game of cosmic chess. But it was David O'Reilly, the veteran combat medic, who showed everyone that neural ships could be more than weapons. During a brutal engagement over Mars, O'Reilly's vessel developed unprecedented damage control abilities. He didn't just repair systems, he treated his ship like a living organism, rerouting power like blood flow, sealing breaches like wound closure. "The ship isn't just a machine," O'Reilly tried to explain during debriefing. "It's a body. Our body. And I've spent 20 years learning how to keep bodies alive." The Arxians observed these developments with growing concern. Their sensor logs showed impossible maneuvers, inexplicable tactical decisions that somehow proved devastating, and ships that refused to die, even when their damage exceeded survivable parameters. "How are you managing this?" Dr. Martinez asked O'Reilly after he brought his ship home despite losing 60% of his core systems. The damage reports said he should have been dead. O'Reilly's neural projection shrugged. "Same way the human body keeps going when the textbooks say it should quit. Pure bloody-minded stubbornness." But it wasn't all combat excellence. The neural ships began displaying quirks that reflected their pilots' personalities. Cooper's ship would rev its engines during pre-flight checks, the vibrations matching the rhythm of old rock songs. Wong's vessel arranged its drone escorts in patterns that, viewed from above, formed complex chess positions. During one memorable skirmish, O'Reilly's ship detected a civilian transport taking heavy damage. Without hesitation, he positioned himself between the transport and the Arxian attackers, using his own hull as a shield while simultaneously talking the transport's crew through emergency repairs. He took devastating damage, but saved every civilian life. "The Arxians don't get it," Riley said during a squadron briefing, his holographic form pacing before the assembled neural signatures of his pilots. "They think we've given up our humanity to become machines, But we haven't become machines at all. We've made the machines human. As if to prove his point, Cooper's ship chose that moment to do a barrel roll in formation, just because she could. Dr. Martinez watched the neural ships interact, noting how they positioned themselves to protect their squad mates, how they communicated through subtle shifts in position and energy signatures. The Arctians had built perfect machines, but humanity had done something they never expected. They'd given their ships souls. And souls, as the Arctians were about to learn, fought a hell of a lot harder than computers. Dr. Martinez stood in the Neural Command observation deck, watching the midnight training exercises through reinforced windows. What she saw defied every principle of military formation flying. The neural ships weren't just running drills. They were dancing. They're not following any known combat protocol, Admiral Chen observed, his face illuminated by the glow of thruster fire. Look at how they move. Cooper's ship led a weaving pattern that looked more like a NASCAR draft than a military formation. Wang's vessel orchestrated complex positional plays, while O'Reilly's ship hovered protectively near vessels showing signs of stress in their drive signatures. Riley's ship, now leading the squadron, moved through them, all like a shepherd tending his flock. That's because they're not following protocols, Kate replied, studying her neural activity readings. They're following relationships. The breakthrough had come during a routine training exercise 3 days ago. Wang's ship had taken simulated damage, and without orders, Cooper's vessel had broken formation to shield him. The maneuver had violated every tactical doctrine, but had saved both ships. When questioned, Cooper couldn't explain her decision. "I just felt him get hit," she'd said during debrief, her neural projection flickering with emotion. "You don't leave family hanging." Family. That was the word that had caught Kate's attention. "Look at their neural patterns during downtime," she said, pulling up holographic data streams. "They're not powering down during maintenance cycles. They're dreaming. And not individually. They're sharing dreams." The Admiral leaned closer to the displays. "Is this a security concern?" "It's our greatest advantage." Kate highlighted specific neural signatures. The Arctians built their fleets on perfect tactical coordination. We've accidentally created something far more powerful, emotional bonds. As if to prove her point, Riley's ship emitted a series of complex energy pulses, a joke in ship speak that sent ripples of corresponding energy signatures through the fleet. They were laughing. During the last engagement, Kate continued, Cooper's ship took a direct hit to her sensor array. The damage should have blinded her, but Wang's vessel instantly adjusted position to share his sensor feed. They compensated for each other's weaknesses without a single command being issued. "Like a real squadron," the Admiral mused. "Like a family," Kate corrected. The Arctians optimize for tactical efficiency. They can't understand sacrificing optimal positioning to protect a squad mate. They can't compute why a ship would risk mission failure to save a friend. The neural ships had finished their exercise and were returning to their maintenance base, but instead of docking individually, they were moving in pairs, helping vessels with strained engines, sharing power loads, maintaining constant communication through subtle electromagnetic pulses. "We thought we were creating better weapons," Kate said softly. "We actually created something that transcends warfare entirely. They're not just ships anymore. They're a community." Her monitors showed the neural activity during docking. As each ship settled into its bay, its consciousness remained partially active, maintaining a low-level connection with its squad mates. They refused to truly sleep alone. O'Reilly's ship has started running diagnostic scans on other vessels during downtime, Kate noted. The old medic in him, checking on his patients. Cooper and Wang's ships exchange tactical puzzles they've created, trying to outsmart each other. Riley's vessel. He tells them stories, sharing combat experiences through data packets that feel more like memories than reports. The Admiral watched the last ship dock, its energy signature humming in harmony with its neighbors. "Will this make them better fighters?" Kate smiled. "Sir, the Arctians built their ships to be perfect warriors. We've built ours to be human. They fight for programming. Ours fight for each other. Which would you bet on? In their maintenance bays, the neural ships continued their quiet communion, sharing dreams of victory, of home, of a future worth fighting for. The Arctians would never understand this power, the strength that comes not from perfect programming, but from the imperfect, unshakable bonds of human connection. And in the darkness of space, that would make all the difference. Operation Logic Storm began with a simple declaration from the Arctian collective. Insufficient data creates inefficient responses. We will correct this anomaly. Their attack came without warning. 17,000 ships dropped out of FTL simultaneously, their formation so precise it looked like a single massive constellation of death. The Neural Command Squadron, only 30 ships strong, watched the endless wave of Arctian vessels approach Earth's orbital defense line. Well, Cooper's transmission carried her signature drawl. This is gonna be interesting. Riley's ship moved to the front of their formation. Doc, you seeing this? In the Neural Command Center, Dr. Martinez stared at the tactical display in horror. They're not just attacking. They're running a systematic elimination program. They want to understand how you think, how you fight. They'll sacrifice ships just to gather data on your responses. Then let's give them something worth studying. Riley's ship suddenly cut all power, appearing dead in space. Through their neural link, he shared his desperate plan with the squadron. It was suicide, but it was also purely human. Exactly the kind of irrational strategy the Arctians couldn't predict. The first wave of Arctian ships approached, their AI calculating the optimal firing solutions for a disabled vessel. They didn't expect Riley's dead ship to suddenly overload its reactor, creating an electromagnetic pulse that rippled through their perfect formation. The blast fried his systems, but not before he broadcast targeting data to every neural ship in range. For Earth, Riley's final transmission cut off as his consciousness fled his dying vessel. The Arctians' precise formations became their weakness. Cooper's ship used their predictable spacing to execute an impossible series of maneuvers, turning their own ships into obstacles. "Y'all never learned to drift," she transmitted, her ship sliding between enemy vessels like a stock car threading through traffic. Wong's vessel orchestrated a series of tactical feints that turned the Arctians' own prediction algorithms against them. In chess, his calm voice echoed through the command channel. Sometimes you sacrifice your queen to win the game. His ship drew heavy fire, but the maneuver allowed 3 other neural ships to eliminate a key Arctian command node. O'Reilly's vessel became a mobile repair station, pushing his medical knowledge to its limits. The ship's a body, he reminded everyone through gritted teeth, rerouting power and sealing breaches in ways that defied engineering logic. And I'm the best damn combat medic in the fleet. The battle shattered every tactical doctrine ever written. Neural ships took hits that should have destroyed them, fighting on through sheer determination. They protected each other with seemingly illogical movements that somehow always worked out. They communicated through intuition and emotion rather than tactical protocols. The Arctians kept gathering data, kept analyzing, kept trying to find the pattern. But there was no pattern. Only the beautiful chaos of human improvisation. Their entire strategy depends on predictability, Dr. Martins realized, watching the battle unfold. And humans are anything but predictable. Cooper's ship, heavily damaged but still fighting, used her own leaking plasma trail as a trap, igniting it just as a group of Arctian vessels passed through. "NASCR taught me something about using your wreck to win the race," she transmitted through static. Wong's vessel had positioned damaged friendly ships like chess pieces, turning their disabled forms into a tactical advantage. "Every piece matters," he said, "even the ones you think are lost." The neural ships fought like their lives depended on it. Because they did. They fought for Earth, for each other, and for the simple fact that humans don't know how to quit. When the battle finally ended, the massive Arctian fleet had been reduced to scattered remnants. But the cost had been devastating. Of 30 neural ships, only 12 remained functional. Riley's sacrifice had turned the tide, but his loss left a hole in their neural network that felt like a missing limb. In the debris field, Cooper's damaged ship transmitted on all frequencies. That was for Ghost. The Arctians retreated, their perfect formations broken, their combat algorithms questioning everything they thought they knew about human capability. They had come to gather data on human inefficiency. Instead, they had learned a harsh lesson about human spirit. In the Neural Command Center, Dr. Martinez began calculating how quickly they could integrate new pilots, because one thing was certain: this was just the beginning. 3 weeks after Operation Logic Storm, Dr. Martinez found herself analyzing some very unusual maintenance logs. During standard repair cycles, the neural ships weren't just powering down. They were experiencing something remarkably close to REM sleep. Check this out. Cooper's neural projection appeared in the lab, her familiar NASCAR jacket now adorned with digital static. During last night's maintenance, my ship started composing poetry, in binary, about racing through nebulae. Kate pulled up the data streams, fascinated. The neural patterns showed something unprecedented. The ships weren't just running system diagnostics, they were processing their experiences emotionally, just like human dreams. "That's nothing," O'Reilly chimed in, his projection looking as tired as a ship's consciousness could look. "My vessel refuses to accept repairs from anyone except Maria Rodriguez's maintenance crew. Says their hands feel right." He shrugged. "Think my old medical instincts are bleeding through, picking favorite nurses." The evolution wasn't limited to individual quirks. During the integration of a new pilot into Riley's recovered ship, something extraordinary happened. The vessel retained echo patterns of Riley's neural signature, creating a hybrid consciousness that carried shadows of its former pilot's experience. "It's like muscle memory," Wong theorized during an emergency staff meeting, his projection moving chess pieces that weren't there. "The ships aren't just machines we inhabit. They're becoming extensions of human consciousness itself." The Arctians, monitoring these developments through their surviving reconnaissance vessels, began registering what their logic centers could only classify as fear. Their reports back to the collective were filled with terms like unprecedented variability and consciousness contamination. Kate dove deeper into the phenomenon, documenting every unexpected development. The neural ships had started developing their own traditions. Before each mission, they would align their energy signatures in harmony, a moment of shared consciousness that felt like a prayer. They gave each other nicknames based on their quirks and battle scars. Cooper's ship became Drifter, Wong's was Kingmaker, and O'Reilly's earned the title Patchwork for his miraculous repair abilities. But it was during an apparently routine patrol that the true depth of their evolution became clear. A rookie pilot, newly integrated into a destroyer-class vessel, panicked during their first FTL jump. Instead of a catastrophic neural cascade, the other ships instantly extended their consciousness through the squadron's neural network, sharing their experience and calming the rookie's terror. They're not just sharing tactical data, Kate realized, reviewing the neural patterns. They're sharing emotions, memories, even dreams. They've developed a form of collective consciousness while maintaining individual identity, something that should be theoretically impossible. The implications were staggering. The Neural Command Program hadn't just created better weapons, it had given birth to an entirely new form of human existence. The ships were evolving beyond their original parameters, developing abilities that neither their human pilots nor their mechanical systems should have been capable of. During one memorable incident, Cooper's ship detected an anomaly in Wong's reactor core before any diagnostic systems registered a problem. When asked how she knew, her response was simple. He felt wrong. Like when you know your friend is sick just by looking at them. The Arctians, attempting to analyze these developments, found their logic centers approaching breakdown. Their perfect understanding of machine behavior couldn't account for ships that dreamed, felt, and intuitively knew things their sensors couldn't detect. "They're afraid," Wong observed during a tactical briefing, his projection still absently moving phantom chess pieces, "not because we're stronger, but because we're becoming something they can't quantify. Kate watched the neural ships in their maintenance bays, their energy fields gently pulsing in synchronized patterns as they dreamed their strange, digital dreams. They were rewriting everything humanity thought they knew about consciousness, about the boundary between human and machine. "We thought we were uploading human consciousness into machines," she wrote in her research logs. "Instead, we've created something entirely new. A perfect synthesis of human spirit and mechanical capability." The Arxians wanted to eliminate human inefficiency from space combat. Instead, they forced us to evolve. In their bays, the ships continued their quiet communion, sharing memories of battles won and lost, of the vast beauty of space, of what it meant to be both human and more than human. And somewhere in the void, the Arxians watched, their perfect logical minds trying desperately to understand what their calculations told them was impossible. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in defying their calculations, it was in transcending them entirely. The Battle of Proxima Centauri began with a paradox. The Arxians, having analyzed every second of Operation Logic Storm, launched what their computations deemed a mathematically perfect attack. They failed to realize that perfection was exactly what made them vulnerable. "They're running battle simulations based on our previous encounters," Wong transmitted as the massive Arxian fleet emerged from FTL. His neural signature pulsed with what could only be described as amusement. "They think they've solved us like an equation. Then let's show them some new variables." Cooper's ship accelerated forward, her energy signature already fluctuating in ways that made her appear damaged and vulnerable. It was a classic NASCAR tactic, looking weak to bait the strong. The Arxian fleet responded exactly as their algorithms dictated, redirecting forces to eliminate the apparently easy target. They didn't expect Cooper to ignite her own decoy drones, creating a cloud of superheated debris that turned into lethal shrapnel at relativistic speeds. Y'all forgot the first rule of racing. Her transmission cut through the chaos. "Sometimes you gotta crash to win." Dr. Martinez watched from the Neural Command Center as human intuition systematically dismantled machine logic. Wong's vessel had sacrificed its primary weapons, channeling all power to its shields. The Arxians' predictive algorithms classified him as defensive, right until he used his overpowered shields to ram through their formation like a bulletproof battering ram. In chess, Wong's calm voice belied the destruction his maneuver caused. "The best move is often the one your opponent believes impossible." O'Reilly's ship took the concept of battlefield medicine to an entirely new level. Rather than avoiding damage, he positioned himself to take hits meant for other ships, his advanced damage control abilities allowing him to survive wounds that should have been fatal. "The thing about trauma medicine," he grunted while rerouting power through systems that should have been molten slag, "is sometimes you have to bleed to save the patient." The neural ships fought with everything that made them human. They used fear as a weapon, deliberately presenting vulnerabilities that triggered the Arxians' attack algorithms, then turning those attacks into traps. They communicated through intuition and emotion, coordinating complex maneuvers with nothing more than shared feeling and trust. "They're trying to calculate our next moves," Wong observed as his ship danced through the chaos. "But you can't calculate inspiration." Cooper proved this by executing a maneuver that violated 12 different laws of physics. She used her own ship's damaged sections as impromptu weapons, ejecting twisted metal at precisely calculated angles to create a lethal field of debris. The Arxian ships, following their perfect attack patterns, flew right into her trap. "Sometimes you gotta break your ride to win the race," she transmitted, her neural signature bright with fierce joy. The battle reached its crescendo when Wong's ship detected a pattern in the Arxian formation, not through sensor data or tactical analysis, but through pure human intuition. "They're moving like a trapped king," he realized. "Their command ship is vulnerable." What followed was perhaps the most human moment of the entire war. Without orders, without tactical coordination, the neural ships moved as one. Their individual fighting styles merged into a single devastating assault. Cooper's unpredictability, Wong's strategic brilliance and O'Reilly's resilience combined into something the Arctians couldn't possibly have predicted. Pure human improvisation at ship scale. The Arxian command ship, confronted with behavior that defied every combat algorithm ever written, hesitated for a crucial second. That moment of computational uncertainty was all the neural ships needed. For Riley, the squadron transmitted in unison, their combined attack tearing through the perfect Arxian defenses like they were made of paper. In the debris field that followed their victory, Cooper's ship began broadcasting an old Earth victory song through her external speakers. One by one, the other ships joined in, their harmonized energy signatures creating a symphony of triumph that no pure machine could ever understand. The Arctians had built their strategy on the assumption that human consciousness was a weakness to be exploited. Instead, they had learned that humanity's greatest strengths, emotion, intuition, and the ability to transcend logic, couldn't be countered by mere calculation. In the Neural Command Center, Dr. Martinez smiled as she watched the neural ships dance their victory formation through the stars. The human equation, it seemed, couldn't be solved by mathematics alone. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, Dr. Catherine Martinez stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her holographic presentation showing the evolution of the Neural Command Program. Behind her, through the chamber's massive windows, neural ships danced through their patrol patterns, their movements more fluid and natural than any machine had a right to be. The Arctians came to eliminate what they saw as human inefficiency. She began, her voice carrying across the hushed chamber. Instead, they forced us to discover something extraordinary, the next step in human evolution. The main display showed neural patterns from the first integration attempts compared to current readings. The difference was stunning. Where early patterns showed clear divisions between human and machine consciousness, current scans revealed something entirely new, a perfect synthesis of both. We didn't just transfer human consciousness into machines, Kate continued. We expanded what it means to be human. Cooper's ship soared past the window, executing a barrel roll that would have made her NASC, our sponsors, weep with joy. Her neural pattern now showed perfect integration between her racing instincts and the ship's capabilities. She hadn't just learned to be a ship, she taught her ship to be a pilot. The Arxian Collective has requested peace talks, Admiral Chen announced to the Council. Their exact words were, "Human inefficiency has proven optimal." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. The Arctians, masters of pure logic, had been forced to admit that human irrationality, our emotions, our intuition, our ability to improvise, represented an evolutionary advantage they couldn't match. But the real breakthrough, Kate highlighted a new set of neural readings, came when we stopped thinking of the neural ships as weapons and recognized them as what they truly are, a new form of human existence. The evidence was undeniable. Neural ships had developed their own culture, their own traditions. They dreamed during maintenance cycles, composed poetry in binary, and formed emotional bonds that transcended normal human relationships. Wang's ship had started teaching tactical thinking to newly integrated vessels through what could only be described as neural chess games. O'Reilly's vessel had revolutionized ship medicine, developing repair techniques that merged human intuition with mechanical precision. They're not just tools anymore, Kate explained. They're the next chapter in human consciousness. As if to prove her point, the neural fleet outside began their evening ritual, a harmonized pulse of energy signatures that looked like a prayer to the stars. Each ship maintained its individual identity, while participating in a collective consciousness that humans had only dreamed of achieving. The Arxians thought consciousness was a weakness. Kate's voice softened. They believed that pure logic was the pinnacle of evolution, but they forgot something fundamental about humanity. Our greatest strength isn't in our ability to be perfect. It's in our ability to take our imperfections and turn them into advantages. The council chamber fell silent as Riley's recovered ship passed the window, now integrated with a new pilot but still carrying echoes of its original consciousness. Like a living thing, it had learned, grown, and carried forward the memories of those who came before. "We stand at a crossroads," Kate concluded. The neural command program began as a desperate attempt to survive. It became something far more important, a door to humanity's future. The Arxians helped us discover that the next step in human evolution isn't to become more like machines. It's to teach machines to be more like us. Outside, Cooper's ship led the fleet in what looked like a dance, their movements expressing joy in ways no algorithm could calculate. Wang's vessel moved through tactical patterns that seemed to paint chess moves among the stars. O'Reilly's ship hummed with healing energy, watching over its squadmates with medical precision merged with human care. They were no longer simply ships or merely human. They had become something new, a perfect synthesis of human spirit and mechanical capability, of consciousness and computation, of logic and love. As humanity looked to the stars, they did so not as conquerors or survivors, but as pioneers of a new form of existence. The neural ships weren't just weapons that had won a war. They were the first citizens of humanity's next great adventure. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the Arxians watched and wondered if perhaps they had been asking the wrong questions all along. Maybe the point wasn't to eliminate human inefficiency, but to understand why those very inefficiencies made us unconquerable. The future, it seemed, belonged not to the perfect, but to the perfectly human.